Now's the time for a great deal on a new Honda. It's time to take an adventure with rugged capability and commanding style. Check out the Honda Ridgeline, Pilot, or CR-V. For a limited time, well-qualified buyers can get a 3.99% APR on a 2025 Pilot, a 1.99% APR on a 2025 Ridgeline, or a 2.99% APR on a 2025 CR-V.
See dealer for financing details.
What up, Cal fans? We are back with a very special spring episode of Golden Bear Cast. We are, of course, a proud partner of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Andy. Alongside me is Rob. What has that been happening, man? It's been a minute.
We've legit been in hibernation. You and I both have been in hibernation.
It's cool. I looked at, was it Amon Green? His podcast.
Yeah.
He hasn't done one since the Packers were out. I was like, I appreciate that. I'm glad it's not just me.
We can only take so much from a emotional and mental standpoint that we're going to need our time off. Andy's right now reveling in the fact that the Giants are atop of the NL West, or at least tied atop the NL West.
No.
Or are they not anymore?
No, I'm taking his full credit as first place.
Oh, you're taking full credit. Okay.
Look at the winning percentage. I'm tired of these Dodgers fans. My gosh.
Yeah. So Andy's taking that. Andy's also taking the Warriors and their incredible rise over the last month. I'm enjoying myself just watching Luka Doncic in the Laker jersey. So we all have places we're finding happiness and joy in sports.
Coping mechanisms.
Coping mechanisms. Despite what happened elsewhere.
The Dubs lost, so we're down to the 6th seed again.
Yeah.
We were flying pretty high. We were flying pretty high at beating Lakers in that game. Was a great game, and then Denver back to back. Yeah. There was some OKC was looking bad, so there were some texts going out saying who can stop us in the West, and so in some ways I'm kind of glad. That was a little bit of a humbling loss to the Rockets, and 3 points from Steph is very concerning.
The man can't score over 40 points every night. It's just it's not.
I know. That's why I'm like,
happen all the time.
Jimmy, where you at? That's why I got you. No, this is one of the best times of the year. NCAA tournament, you have the start of baseball, you have the end of basketball, you have the end of hockey, you have Ovechkin beating, passing Gretzky's record, and that was such a sick goal to do it on. Yeah. And that's one of those records that we say now when everyone's like, no one's ever going to get the Steph 3-point record. That was the Gretzky goal record.
Yep.
No one ever thought that thing was anyone was going to come close to that. And Ovechkin, he's unreal. He's 39, and he's still so good.
And he doesn't have half of his front teeth.
No. He hasn't had those for a while.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Yeah. That's our coping mechanisms, but people want to hear us talk about college sports, so that's why we're back.
Well, it's a good time.
It is.
We have the chalkiest of chalk NCAA tournament that I am in such a shit position with this tournament. It's so bad. And not because my bracket was fine, but it's all chalk, and to top it off, the coach from Florida is Golden, who, right? That's his name? Is it Todd Golden?
Todd Golden.
Who is the coach at USF that you and I talked about on this podcast 5 years ago.
Yeah, just about.
And we're like, we should get that guy. And then it turns out he might be a kind of shitty character.
Yep.
The stalking allegations, look, they're allegations. I haven't been following up on this. I have to be very careful with how we say this, but some really bad allegations out there for a family man. And I'm like, oh man, he might be toast at Florida. Nope. Wrong.
The story just disappears.
The story disappears, as unfortunately can happen with success. They win the SEC tournament, I believe. Mm-hmm. Then they go on this run. I remember originally I was like, I'm not going to root for them, so I had them going out in like the second round. I changed it, had them going to the final losing to Michigan State. Ooh. And now they're in the final. There's not a whisper about any of those allegations out there. And I don't know much about Houston, but tomorrow night, Houston all the way.
Yeah, I'm rooting for the Cougars.
But it is crazy. There is a little bit of Cal news in that when he was at USF and they were a good team, you and I had the conversation of that's the guy we should go and get. And there was conversations that had happened. Mm-hmm. But Florida obviously offered way more. I think there was a desire from him to want to stay on the West Coast. And then this just gets so complicated because I'm like all of this hypothesizing about somebody that probably for the best.
Yeah.
But what a world.
Look, Duke lost. That game was amazing. The Duke-Houston game. And so I'm happy that Duke lost. And I'm happy that game was exciting. And it ended up being the way that it was. I am here rooting for Case Keenum's alma mater. That is all I'm here for. The Cougs.
Wait, but why Case Keenum? Is it because of the
just because he holds the record. He holds the passing record at Houston.
Of the NCAA passing record?
Yeah, and while he was at Houston. So
yeah.
So
I thought no tie in there? No Charger shout out, nothing?
To Houston?
I mean, no, I was just the Case Keenum was just the fact that he went to Houston.
No, maybe. Yeah, that's it. That's the only reason.
Unbelievable.
It's only because I saw an article today where it had it was talking about the University of Houston and it had the picture was of Case Keenum at a home game.
Not to keep going on this, but was what didn't Kelvin Sampson have some bad history?
Yeah, that's why he ended up at Houston.
And that's how he ended up at Houston.
And then he turned that into a national powerhouse.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Not many topics that we can touch on without getting in massive trouble here. So we'll just plead ignorance and talk about something else.
All right. Let's talk about another court case that's about to happen tomorrow. So we're recording this on Sunday. Monday is when the ruling is about to come down, which is the House settlement. I learned this actually as I read more about it. When I first heard House settlement, I thought it just meant House of Representatives, settlement. But it wasn't. It's the actual athlete, a former swimmer. His last name is House. And it's his case. Way. It's his case plus two other cases that got combined into one that turned into this settlement case, which is just labeled as the House settlement.
That is such good knowledge. I 1,000% thought it was just because it was in the House of Representatives.
Yeah. So this House settlement, I'm going to read from a CBS article here. The House versus NCAA settlement looms as one of the biggest changes in college athletics in decades. The settlement of a multi-billion class action lawsuit from 2020 establishes a trough of $20.5 million for schools outside of NCAA oversight to directly pay athletes for their athletic talents. The settlement goes directly against the foundation of why the NCAA was founded 120 years ago to protect the amateur ideal. But for the NCAA to survive strategically, it had to agree to the settlement. Had the lawsuit gone to trial, the NCAA risked losing in court, which would have trebled the damages and possibly bankrupted the association. In terms of what this does, by definition, that $22.5 million is capped, meaning there are possible legal issues to limiting compensation. Deals over $600 will be vetted, as this is a first of its kind fair market. There's also a first of its kind fair market value component. They're going to implement a CEO. I think the auditing is going to be done by Deloitte for all of this. And so that's what's on the docket for tomorrow on Monday. Andy, a couple other things to note before, Andy, I want to toss to you to get your thoughts on this. I read I think it was the Athletic article a couple days ago, because I wanted to read about how they were going to manage the salary cap, like, the 22 million, right? How are you going to make sure certain teams aren't spending above or below, or like, do you get rollover if you don't spend all 20? Basically, I believe there's a company that they're working with that handles creating programs for salary cap management by a league. So I believe it's the same company that made like the salary cap programs for the NBA and the NFL, and how they can you submit your numbers into the program so that the association can manage the numbers per school and take a look at it and audit it and so on. So that's kind of, and then they said there's restrictions and there's going to be, enforcement based on, I don't know if you overspend or if, if you don't report it properly, so on. But yeah, that's the current state of where we're at, and this will be announced tomorrow. Your thoughts?
This is the beginning of potentially a good thing, and also quite a bit of complication for Cal. Mm-hmm. But overall, I don't really know what to make of it until it's like real.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's two things at play here. And I just have like more so like one fundamental question for you, Rob, which is, do you really think that this is going to be something that is adhered to by all of these collectives that have now been created on, the cat has sort of been out of the bag for a few years with very little regulation. And now these collectives have hundreds of millions of dollars. And in this world, when hundreds of millions of dollars are out there, they tend to have pretty loud voices and representation to make sure that they can continue to spend hundreds of millions of dollars. So I just wonder if is this like a glorified Band-Aid for legitimacy and regulation that in actual practice might be much ado about nothing? Or is this like actually the fundamental shift that the NCAA wants it to be, away from NIL collectives and into a more regulated college football?
I think my answer to that would probably be 2 points. So the first point would be, if all of these NIL collectives are still a third-party organization, that makes it a big issue. But if all of these NIL collectives are now absorbed into athletic departments, and that is how you're spending that money, then in my thought, in a perfect world where no one is, greedy or overspending, and that's I'm just saying for the sake of the argument here, then what you do is, let's say, like, if you're let's just take, for example, like, let's say you're Florida, because we were just talking about Florida, and in your NIL collective, you have bankrolled, let's say $60 million into your NIL collective. I think in a perfect society, that gets merged into the Florida Athletic Department, and that $60 million is now spread out to help fund the $20 million or whatever surplus that you might need to fulfill that $22.5 million salary cap, quote unquote, that you can spend a year. That would be my hope and expectation, is how that's how you merge the craziness that has come in. Now, the second part on top of that is, it's going to be very interesting over the next 2 to 3 years to see if anyone pushes that envelope, to see if any school decides to spend $25-30 million on NIL stuff to bring in guys, and let's say they win, a national championship or whatnot. What does the NCAA do? Like, do they actually enforce something where you can't recruit guys, or your salary cap is now halved and you're under intense scrutiny if you're postseason banned? Like, what is the NCAA going to do at that point, and will they enforce it strictly enough that it's like, oh, that school's been made an example of, like that's what happens if you cross. Like, are they going to be stricter in terms of their enforcement of the rules, or are they going to be looser about it? But we just won't know until we like get news stories out in the next few years about a certain team that have violated those rules.
Yeah, well, just a matter of time.
Yeah,
for sure. That's pretty interesting because it sort of creates two things. One, like you could look at it two ways, or I'm sure more than two, but one of the ways I can interpret that is, okay, maybe all of the funds that have been collected over the last couple of years for Cal, now that if those could be rolled into the university and then cover that $20 million or, some of it, then does that potentially ease the burden that we were assuming it was going to get passed on to the university? So that's sort of like the optimist view. Mm-hmm. The pessimist view is, oh, great. This is all being put back underneath the athletic department. And the whole point and enthusiasm and joy of the collective itself was that it was self-managed, away from the athletic department, and literally able to be directed at exactly what we wanted it spent on. And that's a sore subject for anyone that's been close to the athletic department, given that in the past, funds have been redirected away from football and applied elsewhere. So, both of those all in one. I don't know which way to react.
I mean, this all ties into, the other story for Cal fans, which is Ron Rivera becoming the GM, right? Which we're going to talk about in another pod in a little bit.
No, we can talk about it now.
You want to talk about it now? Okay.
Yeah.
So Ron Rivera is appointed as the GM. The statement goes out, and it confuses kind of everyone, that he's like the GM, but he reports to Rich Lyons, but Justin Wilcox is the head coach of Cal football, and he reports to Jim Knowlton. And then this entire statement comes out from Bear Insider about the direction in which it's heading and the confusion in which the roles create, and then that was picked up by national media, ESPN, SFGate, and I'm going to read a little excerpt from the CBS Sports article by Will Backus, titled, "Cal Megadonors want Justin Wilcox answering to GM Ron Rivera, will withhold NIL money until changes is made. Two of Cal's largest athletic benefactors will no longer contribute to the California Legends Collective, the program's large third-party NIL establishment, until new general manager Ron Rivera is given full control of the football program, according to the SFGate. As things stand, Cal coach Justin Wilcox still answers directly to athletic director Jim Knowlton, while Rivera's role is focused more on helping Cal adjust to the modern landscape of college football. The belief among Cal donors is that Rivera, given his experience as a head coach at the NFL level, will be better suited in a quasi-executive role similar to Stanford's Andrew Luck. Kevin Kennedy does give a question or quote here: "You don't hire Mario Andretti and ask him to sit in the passenger seat, right? There's a reason that you bring someone like that onto the staff, and it's in order to give him control." I think there's two things here that's coming into play, and maybe like a tertiary like side factor. And I'm going to start with that one, which is Troy Taylor being fired by Stanford, and the man at the press conference who is quote unquote firing him is the GM Andrew Luck. And that's the just forward facing, like that's what Cal fans want Ron Rivera's role to be, is that he has direction oversight of the football program. And if he deems that a football coach is not good enough or, needs to make a change, he's the one that's doing it. And then the other factor that comes into play with this, and I think I was talking with some of the Right for Cal writers, and they made a good point. I think one of the things that some of these national articles are missing is that it's not that Cal fans don't trust the athletic department. It's that Cal fans have gone to not trust the athletic director. And they want the power an oversight of Cal football to be removed from him and given to Ron Rivera. I think if we had a different athletic director that Cal fans wanted, let's say we fired Jim Nolan tomorrow and we hired a new athletic director, I don't think they would mind as much. I think they would still care, but I don't think they would mind as much. But it's the fact of who our AD is right now with this statement going out that has everyone more upset and just angry that we can't seem to get everything right to just get us in the right position to be successful in the college football landscape.
Yeah, I think that's it. Exactly. I think you said it really well in the fact that I still wouldn't necessarily trust the Cal Athletic Department to be fully functional. I think there's probably some areas of opportunity there. At the same time, the buck stops with Knowlton, and at almost any other university he wouldn't have a job right now, but because we are Cal, he's still employed. So, yeah, that's exactly right, and it's an interesting thing to get national headlines on, because I don't really think it helps anybody.
No.
For better or for worse, I haven't been as generous with the Legends Collective at all in comparison to what I give to the actual university. It's just easier for me to understand what my impact's going to be. And as you are donating, it does say 10% of this donation is going to go to other things than what you're donating it towards. At least for however I'm doing it. And I don't, donate a tremendous amount, but I don't know. It's tough. And yeah, it's just lose-lose. The second you get national press for that, it just looks like shit for us as a university. It looks like shit for us from a football program collective perspective. I don't know. I think everybody loses. It's unfortunate. And I understand 100% why they're doing it. And I also would back anybody that says, hey, you guys have lost my trust. You got to have the trust in the first place, especially when it comes to big financial donation and stuff like that. If the trust isn't there and that it's going to be lit on fire, who the hell would give money to that? And there's a reason why donor cultivation exists.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's kind of where we're at with the House settlement and Ron Rivera as GM. Hopefully we get some more clarity on that moving forward. But, it is the summertime, so we'll see what happens in the next few weeks. The last thing we're going to talk about here for a couple minutes before we close out this pod is Deion Sanders at Colorado wanted to run a spring game against another team. He found another team in Syracuse, and and Fran Brown, the Syracuse head coach, was all for it. They submitted a waiver to the NCAA to play the game and have a joint, week-long session together. It was actually pretty cool in what they kind of laid out. They were like, yeah, we're going to teach a financial literacy class with all of them while they're here. They're going to be able to hang out and all of that stuff. It's not just going to be purely football throughout the week. But ultimately, the NCAA said no because of a lack of competitive advantage for the rest of the NCAA, which I think kind of makes sense because they get an extra quote-unquote game in, and you can get that experience for those guys versus a lot of other schools and universities and programs have already finished out their spring ball. They're done. Some teams, it's going to be hard for them to schedule a game so last minute. So I understand that. But if that's their only reason for it, then I do feel like this is a thing that's going to start up in the spring, to kind of push more college football content. Do you think it's a good idea? And are you excited or sad at the notion of bringing in more college football throughout the year?
I mean, the answer of it, if they will do it, directly relates to can they make money on it? And the answer is yes, they can make money on it. They'll get broadcasting rights at a time where the NFL is not on. I'm sure ESPN or Fox Sports or whoever would be chomping at the bit to be able to get some of those spring games, especially if they're big matchups. And I know like certainly the ACC network and like formerly Pac-12 network used to air the Pac-12 spring games, and they're super boring. And they still would put that on television. So it's a dead kind of time. And therefore, yes, like I think you could sell tickets, $15 or something like that. It's money for the universities. It's money for the networks. It's money for the program. That'll probably happen. There's a lot of money there. But do I care? And I think that's like the fundamental question is, if we were playing UCLA in a spring game, would I care about it enough to watch? And that comes from someone who's actually watched spring games when we're playing ourselves. And I think the answer is still no. I think I just don't care. Like, sounds cool for the kids, I guess. Financial literacy. I don't know how many of them are actually paying attention to that stuff. Maybe you hope that like 10% are. I certainly know like it's spring. You're probably focused on a lot of other things that are in front of you. But good in theory, and I love that Dion's coming up with these innovative ideas. I think it's at the end of the day, it's actually a nice way to give fans a reason to care about all the spring practices. Like there's like a real culmination in that, and then you kind of get rid of the full lull of spring into fall, waiting for the first like news to break of fall camp in like late July. So yeah, I mean like overall I think it's a really, really cool idea. I don't mean to throw water on it. I just don't know if it's gonna top anything else I have going on in my life right now.
I actually brought this idea up with someone else, but my dream scenario is not a spring game, but there's a new sport that's coming in 2028 with the LA Olympics.
Pickleball.
I don't think pickleball is a sport, but at least not an Olympic sport.
Flag football.
Flag football. My wish and fun like thing that I would want would be like a 10-week flag football season.
They'll never do it.
They'll never do it. But I think how genius would that be if you can combine that with the Olympics coming in with that sport in a couple years, and a lot of NFL guys saying that they want to play, right? So if you can do that.
Did you watch the Pro Bowl flag football?
I know, but they're trying not to get hurt in that. But like, I mean, those athletes are incredible, right? And this is like for an Olympic gold. And I've seen some of the flag football like teams that play like in tournaments. Like I know the Korea team they have like an actual team that plays in national tournaments. Like they're like legit. And there's like some stupid conversations about can a high school 7-on-7 like team in the off season, like could they compete for the Olympics? I highly doubt it, just because you physically it's just different. But that's what I mean. Like because that sport is happening in the Olympics, you could double up and do that in the spring, and you'd have football content, and people would probably eat it up. Yeah. Especially if the same quarterbacks are playing, right? The same wide receivers, like the same linebackers, the same corners. And, it's pretty safe in terms of injury because it's not full body contact. You're going for the flags and all. And that, I mean, people would still buy tickets to go watch those games. People would still watch that on TV.
Look, I was at the Ontario airport, and they were airing two sports. Actually, I'll let you guess. Which two sports? Oh, well, they're not actually. I don't think you can define them as like real televised sports. All right, it was on ESPN the Ocho, so you have to understand that.
Oh, so it's like dodgeball.
Yeah, that's a good guess,
and like tag.
Close. Ultimate Frisbee.
Okay. Yeah.
Quidditch.
Yeah.
And Quidditch is outrageously dumb. I mean, like, it's
you're supposed to be on brooms in the air, so like it doesn't make sense.
Do you know that they're holding sticks?
Yeah, I know they're holding it, but that's what I'm saying. Like it's the whole sport is supposed to be in the air. But anyways, yes,
crazy. It's bananas. It should never be on television. Then Ultimate, I was like, nah. There was actually a couple cool plays. I was like, oh, okay, barely interested enough. But yeah, I just don't know. I don't know. if flag football is gonna get the draw. I think it might like circulate on a couple highlight reels, like whether it be on some social media,
some crazy catches and whatnot.
Yeah, because I could see that appeal, but I do think as an idea, and it's a good point to tie it into the Olympics. Injury risk, like you still have non-contact, but to be fair, I think we overthink. I especially like now think we and I am guilty of this of like overthink, like and overweight the risk and like, oh my gosh, they're gonna get hurt. It's like, well, these dudes are going out and playing all sorts of sports across the summer, having fun. They're kids. 18-year-olds. They're gonna do what they're gonna do. Yeah, I don't know. It's a cool idea.
Yeah, that's the one like idea I had that I think would be cool, but either way, it's not happening. Well, at least I don't think that's happening. So yeah, that's kind of the national news that we needed to talk about. I think we're good here. That's it. That's it for this podcast. If you're following us and listening to us, you already know where to find us. But just in case, you can find us on Twitter at Golden Bearcast. You can find us on Blue Sky as well at Golden Bearcast.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Find us on that.
You can find us on Blue Sky. And then you can listen to us on all of your listening podcast services. You can read all our stuff over at writeforcalifornia.com. And that's it for this one. And as always, go Bears.
Go Bears.